welcome to lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. We have an excellent podcast for you as we're going to be joined in segment number 2 by one of our good friends, Shaggy Betts, aka Nate Hornung. He does great work over at Your Betting News, and we're going to be chatting with him about some of the dynamics of conference play, some of these top teams both going down and experiencing some struggles, what to make out of that, the way that home court advantage and these underdogs are starting to rise up, and we'll take a look at a few games for Sunday as well in the final segment. Going to get you guys picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you do have one of two ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at GUNet_81. Keep in mind, letters CM, name does not matter, so as per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it is very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review. While I did not get in any Twitter/X questions today, we had ourselves a massive day of college basketball on Saturday. Let's take a look back at it, try to find some trends, and try to get to know these teams a little bit better.
Games from yesterday is Greg buzzing about. Here is the rowdy recap.
Arizona may have not gotten the cover, but I think it's fair to say that they were in relatively good control of this game against Central Florida, 84-77. Number one remains undefeated as for Arizona, just 3 of 13 from three-point range, but Jaden Bradley, 11 of 13 at the free throw line. He was able to supply the team with 23 points. And for Central Florida, you had Themis Fulks really step up in this game. He had 30 points. He goes 6 of 6 at the free throw line. For Central Florida, 8 of 26 from 3. Arizona, they win the turnover battle 13-12, rebound battle 37-36. So a little bit of a tighter game than expected, but Central Florida has been a relatively rock-solid team, so a solid win there for Arizona. For Michigan, they got a little bit of a test from Oregon. They were down at the half. They do pull away in the second half, 81-71, the final in this one. As for Oregon, still no Jackson Shellsad for them, but John Stewart has been a little bit of a disappointment this year, 22 points. And for Oregon, they do lose the rebound battle in this one, 36-30. And for Michigan, they were able to find it a little bit more in the second half. Main guy that was able to drive this team to victory was Elliot Kadu, 5 assists, 17 points. And Nobari Burnett was able to have himself a 3 of 7 3-point shooting expose in this one as well. But the big men were relatively, shall we say, kept in check in this one. And for Oregon as well, Nate Biddle, he's been dealing with a little bit of an injury. He did not play in this game either. So credit to Oregon for being able to hold in that one. But now 8-10 straight up for Oregon this season. So has been less than tremendous there. For Georgia, things have been a little bit up, down, all around. And this total was well above 170. So you got an under here. But for Georgia, they take apart Arkansas, this by a count of 90-76, as for Arkansas, just 5 of 21 from 3, and for Georgia, they've struggled from three-point range this year, but they go 12 of 33 on this day. Jeremiah Wilkerson was able to do a nice job being able to supply this team with 20 points, and for Georgia, they do lose a rebound battle 43-35, but they did a nice job forcing 18 turnovers for an Arkansas team that's been very good in terms of taking care of the ball. Darius Acuff, he was able to supply the team with 20 points, but for Arkansas, they do go down in this one. And then if you take a look at John Calipari's old team in the Kentucky Wildcats, they were down double figures at the half. Things were not looking great for them, and they stormed back against Tennessee, 80-78, the final. Denzel Aberdeen, the engine that made this thing run, he was able to supply the team with 22 big points. For Kentucky, who's been a little bit less than expected from three-point range this season, 11 of 24 from the outside. For Tennessee, they do go 8 of 19 from 3, and Jacoby Gillespie, he had himself 24 points, 8 assists, but for Tennessee, they've been plagued by turnovers all season long. They lose the turnover battle 12-9. Tennessee does win the rebound battle by a count of 36-29, but for Kentucky, a very, very much needed win, and they get it. And for Oklahoma, boy, did they need a win in this one, and looked like they were going to get it. Up 11 points at the half against Alabama, and then they made like your buddy at the bar and could not close. 83-81, Alabama on a day where they go 10 of 33 from 3, finds a way to be able to get the job done. Now, Oklahoma was able to get the cover, so yay, verily there, as Xavier Brown was able to supply 21 points. Nigel Pack, he packed it in this one. 2 of 10 from 3-point range. Oklahoma just 6 of 24 from distance themselves. Oklahoma wins the rebound battle 45-33, the turnover battle 11-9, but they need to shoot a little bit better. And for Alabama, despite going 15 out of 26 at the free throw line, they find a way with LeBaron and Filan supplying 23 points. For Seton, been a little bit wobbly for them recently. They fall to Butler by a count of 77-66 in a game where Butler had full control of this game. They were up 10 at the half, and for Seton, they got bizjacked. Finley bizjacked. How about 25 points out of him? 4 of 7 from three-point range. Russell Butler, by the way, 0 of 11 from three-point range, but for Butler, 33 out of 41 at the free throw line, as for Seton Hall, lots and lots of fouls given up in this game, and for Seton Hall, 3 of 17 from three-point range, so less than tremendous there. Iowa State, less than tremendous for them. Back-to-back losses after a 16-0 start, 79-78. Cincinnati Bearcats team has been quite terrible this year. Rises up. As for Cincinnati, they win the rebound battle by a count of 39-32. They go just 10 of 34 from three, so it's not even like they shot it well from three. And Iowa State, they went 9 of 21 from three, with Milan Mimosilovic going 8 of 14 from three, so that means that the rest of the team was 1 of 7 from three-point range. He supplied the team with 34 points, and Joshua Jefferson, 16 points, 9 boards, 5 assists, but you combine those two guys, 50 points, the rest of the team at 20, so that just was not going to cut it. And Day Thomas, 19 points for Cincinnati, and the Bearcats, they actually win the turnover battle 12-8. Typically, that's Iowa State's job, so that was big for them. And for Illinois, no cover in this game, but they do get the outright win against Minnesota, 77-67. The final is for Illinois. They go 13 of 35 from three. Minnesota right there, 12 of 35 from the outside. For Illinois, was a whole was scarier than the sum of his parts approach. Big Z off the bench, 18 points. He led the way there, and Jalen Crocker-Johnson up to be able to get the cover here for Minnesota, as he was able to supply 22 points. And for Minnesota, they do win the turnover battle 10-7. They do not win the rebound battle, though. That would be 42-31 in favor of Illinois. And Tomislav Ivisic, 10 points, 7 rebounds. We'll see if he's able to find it. He's been a little bit wobbly thus far this season. UConn was a little bit wobbly late in this game against Georgetown, but they find a way to hold on, 64-62. The final, as Georgetown continues to be one of the best teams in terms of taking care of the ball this season, but they lost the turnover battle 13-6, and that's why they lost this game. As for UConn, just 5 of 26 from three-point range. For UConn, they do win the rebound battle 40-34, but even with the shakiness that they had from three-point range, they do find a way in this one, as the guy that was able to step up, Terrace Reed, 15 points, 11 rebounds, as Vincent Iwuchukwu making a big impact for Georgetown, just has come back off of injury, 12 points, 14 rebounds, but Georgetown 5 of 14 from three. They've been relatively rough from the outside all season, and those turnovers, they proved to be very, very costly. And for Florida, it seems as though they've been able to figure it out. Another win for them. They're now 4-1 at SEC play. I believe they've now covered 4 straight spreads, 98-94. They take it to Vanderbilt, as Vanderbilt 8 of 22 from three, in Florida, who's been rough with their three-point shooting all season long, 9 of 24 from three. Vanderbilt does win the turnover battle 10-4, but for Florida, 25 out of 30 at the free throw line, and Florida's specialty, winning the battle on the glass, they did so here, 40-26. They win that rebound battle, as you had Ruben Chinyelu give you 10 rebounds along 20 points, and then Alex Condon, Thomas Ha, a combined 34 points between the two of them, 8 rebounds apiece, so Florida's able to win from within. You had Nebraska get an impressive win and cover, 77-58 over Northwestern. Nebraska just continues to dare you to shoot from three. Northwestern tried to go against this. They only went 5 of 14 from three, and they were unable to hit their interior shots as well. Nebraska actually loses the rebound battle 30-28, but for Nebraska, how about 11 of 26 from three-point range? Brandon Frager, 20 points. Price Sanford, 22 points. So they do find a way to be able to get the job done there. And for Utah State, ranked in the top 25, maybe not next week, 84-74. Grand Canyon's got an incredible home court environment. They seem to be figured out, and Grand Canyon gets a win, as they go 7 of 20 from three, which is for them pretty solid. They've been rough with their three-point shooting all season long, with Mekhi Williams off the bench supplying 20 points. And for Utah State, they've been based around MJ Collins this year, has been averaging 20 points per contest. Just 12 points in this one, goes 5 of 13 from the floor. For Utah State, they did a solid job taking care of the ball. They won the turnover battle 11-7. Utah State actually wins the rebound battle 43-38, but they just weren't able to knock down their shots. They shoot just 36% from the floor. So the Antelopes do find a way to be able to persevere in that one. Also being able to persevere, how about Clemson? Nice win and cover for them against Miami, 69-59 the final. As for Clemson, they've been slowing things down, and they've been able to control games, going 8 of 17 from three-point range. For Miami, they lose the turnover battle 16-12, and for Miami, they had Shelton Henderson supplied 22 points. Really, nobody else was able to step up around him. And for North Carolina, the West Coast road trip is not treating them very nicely. They fall to Cal, 84-78 the final. A Cal team that has been pretty remarkable in terms of their offensive efficiency. They did turn the ball over 13 times in this one, but they made up for it by going 14 out of 26 from three-point range. You had 19 points apiece out of Justin Pippen and Day-Day Ames. John Camden, 20 points, and for North Carolina, 9 of 27 from three. North Carolina, their specialty is winning the battle on glass, just 34-34 straight up in this one. Caleb Wilson did have 17 points, but only 5 boards. Henry Vassar, 10 rebounds, but Cal was able to do a relatively solid job holding up on the glass, and for North Carolina, 17 out of 28 at the free throw line. When you lose by 6 points, that's a big reason why. Michigan State, they continue to be stout with their defense, 80-63. They stonewall Washington. Now Washington is going to be without Desmond Claude moving forward, but they did get back Wesley Yates. He only had 4 points in this game, but that's very welcome for them. What's not welcome is the three-point shooting, as for Washington, 3 of 19 from three-point range. Washington lost the turnover battle 12-5, as for Michigan State, they go just 6 of 19 from three-point range, but Jeremy Fears keeps it relatively clean, 5 assists to 1 turnover. He gives the team 19 points for Michigan State. They did a nice job keeping things turnover-free. They find a way to persevere. For Purdue, they were up at the half, and then they were trailing late in the second, but they find a way to storm back against USC, 69-64 the final. This was a 60-57 lead for USC with about 3 minutes remaining, but for this Purdue Boilermakers team, they find a way despite the fact that they do lose a battle on the glass, 40-32, as for USC, you had Jacob Kofi supply 15 rebounds and 13 points, but USC also went 5 of 14 at the free throw line. If you're wondering why they lost by 5, well, there you go right there. They also went 3 of 20 from 3, but did a solid job in terms of holding in there despite being as cold as an igloo with their shooting, but they also lost the turnover battle 13-8. So on a day where Purdue maybe wasn't on their A game, they find a way with Braden Smith stepping up in a big way. Did have 6 turnovers, but 3 steals, 5 assists, 4 boards, 22 points in a game where they badly needed him to be that top scorer. On a day where BYU needed him, AJ Devanza doesn't quite step up for BYU. BYU, by the way, they were up in this game 61-52 with 9 minutes remaining. If you like me at BYU, this was just brutal as they get outscored from there by 22 points, 84-71. Texas Tech, they get a nice win as they outscore BYU in the second half, 52-40. And for Texas Tech, 11-29 from 3. They had a nice performance here from JT Toppin. He goes for 27 points, 12 rebounds. For BYU, they lose the turnover battle, 12-10. They play pretty even up on the glass, but just 5 of 22 from 3. AJ Devanza, 13 points, 3 turnovers, just 1 assist. You did have Robert Wright be Mr. Wright with 28 points, but for BYU, very, very much disintegrated late in this one. A team that was able to rise up, though. How about Louisville? It's been a rough little bit of a run for them, and they restored order with a 159 win over Pittsburgh. As for Louisville, they go in this game 15 out of 29 from 3. They could be hit or miss from 3. Ryan Conwell has been dealing with a little bit of an injury. Looked just fine here, 24 points, 5 of 11 3-point shooting. And for Pittsburgh, they lost the rebound battle 35-24. They lost the turnover battle 10-8. They go 10 of 16 at the free throw line. Nothing went right for them on this day, and a whole heck of a lot went right for Duke. They were able to absolutely lay in base Stanford in the battle. Smart Kids, 80-50 at the final, and Stanford shot 35% from floor, 6 of 25 from 3. 18 turnovers to 19 made field goals for Stanford, and for Duke, they go 28 out of 50 from the floor with Cameron Boozer. 30 points, 14 rebounds. Your odds-on favorite to be able to win the Wooden Award certainly did not hurt his cause there, and if you're looking at some of the trends in terms of college basketball, some of the teams that have been so white off for you, right now the top team in all of college basketball against the spread has been Portland State. Portland State entered into the day with all but one of their games being covered. They, depending upon your closing number, were unable to get the cover here in the Saturday game as they win but do not cover against Northern Arizona. A lot of places had this closing line at about 11.5, and they win by, well, 11 points. As for Northern Arizona, they fall in this game by a kind of 63-52, a little bit of a slog of a game. As for Portland State, they won the turnover battle 13-12, and for Portland State, just 7-23 from 3. Keon Kensey Jr. was able to step up for 20 points as your top 2 scorers, Scary Terry Miller and Jalen Henderson, they both average about 19 points per game throughout the season. They were able to combine for about 29 points in this one, so that was a relatively fun one, and with them being unable to get the cover, your new top cover team in all of college basketball, that would be the Bears of Mercer. As Mercer, oh Mercer me, they are 14-2 against the spread this far this season. Go on the road, they take it to UNC Greensboro, this by a count of 102-92. As for Mercer, 10-20 from 3. Greensboro actually heated up 11-25 from the outside, but for Mercer, they've brought in a George Mason transfer in Baraka Okoji, who's been able to turn the fortunes of this team. He was able to spy the team with 25 big points, and for Mercer, that was a really good win for them, so they've been able to cover a lot of spreads. Stone Cold Stephen F. Austin has been as well, just a little bit short in this one. A lot of places had them laying 5.5 to 6.5 points, just an 84-79 win win over a New Orleans team that has legitimately been one of the more improved teams in all of college basketball for New Orleans. They go 9-22 from 3, and for Stephen F. Austin, they did a solid job winning the rebound battle by kind of 35-33, and in this game for Stephen F. Austin, only 5 turnovers out of them. They've actually done a really good job in terms of taking care of the ball. Latif Petrick was able to supply 29 points, so even with the non-cover, Stephen F. Austin, they've still been relatively impressive. Sam Houston State now 12-3 against the spread. They do find a way to be able to persevere over Florida International. This by a count of 76-63 on a day where Florida International could not shoot it from the inside. They actually go 9-21 from 3. How about 6 of 30 on their 2-point shots? You don't see that very often, to say the least. You shoot 43% from 3 and 6 of 30 on your 2-point shots. If you like me at Florida National, by the way, that's brutal. And Sam Houston State only won 14 out of 26 at the free throw line, but they find a way to persevere. Holds greater than the sum of its parts sort of effort. Nobody scores more than 12 points for this team, but you had 6 different guys score at least 9 points. So for Sam Houston State, after they were one of your worst teams against the spread last season, they have been able to rise up thus far this season. Miami of Ohio, they're 12-4 against the spread, and they remain undefeated. They do not get the cover, but they do find a way in overtime to be able to get past Buffalo. This by a count of 105-102. This was a nip and tuck do or die game all throughout as both teams shot it well from 3. Buffalo 13 out of 26 from 3, and Buffalo has also been a really good cover team this season as well, but for Miami of Ohio, 13 out of 29 from the outside. Peter Suter, he led the team, 37 points, 7 of 10 from 3-point range, and he hits the game-winning 3 for Miami of Ohio to be able to remain undefeated. So that's been a great story, and for me personally, I say rank Miami of Ohio. And then Iowa's now 13-5 against the spread. Hawkeyes go on the road. They have yet to really be able to get that big win on the road, and they got it on Saturday against Indiana. How about 74-57 final in this one for Iowa? They go 7 of 19 from 3, but it's more of what they did on defense. Indiana, 6 of 24 from 3. Indiana loses a turnover battle by a count of 9-8. The rebound battle, 28-27. And for Iowa, they just continue to be oh so efficient and do the little things well. 21 out of 23 at the free throw line. Tavion Banks, 9-9 at the charity stripe, 26 points. Bennett Sturts, 27 points, 10 of 11 at the free throw line. Outside of those two guys, you only had to find 19 points for the rest of the Iowa Hawkeyes, but hey, they do find a way to persevere, and they've been a really nice cover team for you thus far this season. So is Virginia. Virginia, all of a sudden, 11-5-2 against the spread. It was a tight one out there in the great state of Texas, but they do find a way to get past SMU. This by a count of 72-68, as for SMU, just won a little bit cold late in this game, and for Virginia, it might not be Tony Bennett's Virginia. They're not playing quite as slow, but still a relatively good defensive team. They win the rebound battle 40-32. They do lose a turnover battle 11-8, but for Virginia, when they need those free throws, they hit them 10 of 12 at the charity stripe. And how about Malik Thomas? 6 of 10 from 3, 23 big points. So Virginia continue to be able to make you a little bit of coin. Another nice cover team for you. How about the Pride of Hofstra? They've been 12-5 against the spread thus far this season. Now, for Hofstra, unable to get the cover in this game, as for the Pride of Hofstra, they fall to Elon 89-85. And Elon, by the way, has been one of your better cover teams. Went a little bit cold there for about a week or so, but this is an Elon team that they themselves have been able to cover quite a few spreads. And for the Elon Phoenix, they find a way in this one thanks to going 9 of 22 from 3 and 22 out of 27 at the free throw line. Chandler Cottrell, 23 big points, and Cruz Davis continues to be a lot of fun, 33 points, but on this day for Hofstra, they were unable to win the turnover battle. They lose that turnover battle 11-7, and for Hofstra, 16 out of 21 at the free throw line, 13 of 30 from 3, but unable to hit those interior shots to be able to pull out the cover there. We already hit upon Buffalo, who's been 11-5 against the spread, but also out there in the back, Western Michigan is 11-5 against the spread, and for Western Michigan, wasn't necessarily a thing of beauty. They were catching like 20 points against Akron, but they do get the cover, 104-89 the final. They were down just 1 point at the half. Akron is able to pull away late, and Akron goes 20 out of 35 from 3-point range, with Tafari Johnson supplying 32 points. Off the bench, Shama Scott was able to go for 23 points as well, but for Western Michigan, they did have Justice Williams, who's just returned off of injury, give the team 5 of 7 3-point shooting, 28 points. So Western Michigan, they themselves go 12 of 26 from 3-point range, so you've had some coin to be made there. Central Connecticut, 9-4-1 against the spread. They were able to get a nice win and cover on Saturday as well, and Prairie View has actually been a nice cover team. They've been able to cover over 2/3 of their spreads this far this season as well. For Prairie View, they did fall in their game against Jackson State, 82-78, so that was a little bit of a setback for them. Meanwhile, for Central Connecticut, much smoother sailing as they get past St. Francis of Pennsylvania. This by kind of 98-90, and I just believe that this is a Central Connecticut team that's been a little bit undervalued all season long, because on the road in this one, they were a favorite in a lot of places of right around about 6.5 points, so they were able to get you that cover. And for Darren Smith Jr., one of the better mid-major players in all of college basketball, 34 points at 6'7". He goes 4-4 from three-point range. Central Connecticut, 11 of 19 from three-point range. They shoot 60% from the floor, 27 out of 34 at the charity stripe. And for Central Connecticut, not quite as strong defensively as they have been in past seasons, but certainly finding a way to be able to get the job done out there. If you're looking at some of your lesser teams against the spread in all of college basketball right now, your absolute worst team is Texas Southern. They entered in the day 2-12 against the spread. They were able to get a cover on Monday to be able to go from being 1-12 against the spread. So things have been very rough for them, to say the least, thus far this season. And on Saturday, things were not really getting a whole lot better. They do win on the road against Alcorn State, 72-71. But this was a place where, in a lot of places, they were finding themselves as like a 1.5, 2-point favorite prior to tip. So they're unable to get the cover there. That was your classic toilet bowl matchup. And you wouldn't think that the spread would be coming into play there of a 1.5, but you know what? It actually did. So Troy Upseed, 16.7 rebounds, a little bit of a shout out there. Meet the UTSA Roadrunners, not in action on Saturday. They will be tomorrow. And Marquette, going back to Friday, they lost to DePaul to go to 4-14-1 against the spread. It's been all sorts of rough for them. Also from Friday, Loyola Chicago, 5-14 against the spread. We hit upon Georgetown, who's now 4-13 against the spread, thanks to their cover on Saturday. And you have a few teams out south that have been not great against the spread. James Madison is currently 5-13 against the spread. It has not been great for them thus far this season. And on Saturday for the Dukes, they were able to hold in there against Marshall, 77-72 the final. So James Madison, they're unable to get the outright win. But this was a spread that in a lot of places I was seeing that 6.5. So for James Madison, they find a way to hold in there thanks to going 11 of 28 from three-point range. And for Marshall, they do go 23 out of 28 at the free throw line. James Madison, 13 out of 20 at the charity stripe. That turned out to be the difference there. And then another team out south that has not been great against the spread this far this season, that would be Western Carolina. They are now 4-11 against the spread. SoCon has some very big extremes in terms of teams that are/are not covering. And Jacksonville State has been another team that's not been covering a lot of spreads now, 4-10-1 against the spread. They were able to get the win against Louisiana Tech, but they do not cover 64-60 in a game that was just an absolute slog. Jacksonville State does go 10-23 from three-point range, but they lose a turnover battle, 11-10. They lose a rebound battle, 36-28. And hey, shout out to Louisiana Tech. They were able to get the cover in this game because they went 12-13 at the charity stripe. So there you go in terms of being able to knock down some free throws. And Ryder has been all sorts of rough against the spread this far this season. 4-9-3 against the spread. They might be the only team in college basketball with 3 pushes thus far this season, and they lose the St. Peter's Peacocks by kind of 69-58. So cash another under if you were taking a look at the Ryder Broncos, who just have not been able to put points up on the board thus far this season. Oregon, I mentioned them, 6-12 against the spread thanks to their cover that they were able to get against Michigan. And Ole Miss has been a really bad against the spread team as well. They are currently 5-12 against the spread. They've been looking a little bit better recently, though, and in the old Egg Bowl, they do get the win 68-67 against Mississippi State. So 3 straight covers after it was really, really dire. Does appear as though Chris Beard's team is starting to figure it out, and they win this game despite going 2 of 20 from three-point range. They were as cold as an igloo, but they did the little things well. They win the turnover battle 8-5. They do lose a rebound battle 46-43, but Mississippi State 14 of 23 at the free throw line. When you lose by 1 point, no wonder why they lost. And Jaden Epps, 1 of 12 from three-point range, so that was very much less than magnificent for them. If you're looking at your top over and under teams in all of college basketball, Denver, the Pioneers, shock, surprise, surprise. They continue to be that top over team. 15 overs, 1 under, and 1 push for them thus far this season. They were not in action on Saturday, so we're going to be seeing them a little bit later on here in the week. But that said, Utah, 14 overs of 4 unders. They were able to get the job done against TCU, and that was a game that was looking like it was going to be an under. I personally was in on that under myself, and you got 55 points in the final 10-plus minutes to be able to push it over. So that was rough, 82-79. Utah does find a way to persevere as they go 9-24 from 3, just 13 out of 22 at the free throw line, but TCU 4-15 from three-point range. TCU loses the turnover battle by a kind of 13-8, and that ultimately was costly for them, and Utah actually wins the rebound battle 40-31 with Keno Dog Utah's being able to get 10 points, 14 rebounds. Utah's also been one of your lesser teams against the spread this far this season, but they were able to find a way there. Elon mentioned them before, 13 overs to 4 unders. Miami of Ohio, 12 overs to 4 unders. Kent State has been playing a lot of overs as well. If you had the under and Kent State laying the number on Friday to go back there, that's just rough. That was able to get Kent State to now 12 overs to 4 unders, and Duquesne has been 12 overs to 4 unders as well, but they did play one of those unders against Fordham. Fordham has been a really good under team, but also underwhelmed against the spread on Saturday as well. As for Duquesne, it appears as though they're slowing down a little bit. Duquesne, they find a way to persevere, 74-63. The final is Fordham. 4 of 28 from 3, and Duquesne was 10 of 24 from 3-point range. Duquesne wins the rebound battle, 44-36. They play even up 13-13 in terms of turnovers, but on this day, Fordham just could not get anything cooking from 3-point range, and for Duquesne, that on their side, Jimmy Williams, who was able to supply the team with 19 points, still dealing with the injury, by the way, to the former Pittsburgh standout in John Higley, so we'll see if he returns at all this season. He's been out for quite some time. Cornell has also been a team that's only covered about a third of their games against the spread this season, but they're also a team that has been at 10-4 to the over. I think that they've had a push along the way as well, and they played a game that was very overwhelming against Yale, as Yale put up a massive number, 102-68 the final. It should be overwhelming, but this was a total that was in the high 170s, so this was actually an under, despite getting 170 points. That's the way that Cornell is being priced right now. It's Cornell 11 of 43 from 3-point range. That actually happened in a 40-minute college basketball game. Yale was a turnover battle, 9-5. They go 12 of 25 from 3-point range. Nick Townsend, 20 points in this game. So not often that you get 170 points in a game and you cash an under, but that's right now we are where we are at with this Cornell team. And Gardner Webb, 12 overs to 5 unders themselves. And Gardner Webb, man, this has not been good to say the least. They have been one of your lesser cover teams in all of college basketball as well. They get lambasted by Presbyterian 92-55. They were down 40-21 at the half. They were able to get the over because Gardner Webb just simply was bleeding points in the second half. But man, that's not been great for Gardner Webb to say the least, who gave up over 90 points on their home floor to North Greenville earlier in the season. Top 100 team in all of college basketball, that'd be the Hawaii Rainbow Warriors. They go to 3 overs and 12 unders with what we saw against State and UC Santa Barbara. Santa Barbara 77-62. They do get the job done against Hawaii, who's been the top team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis away from home. But on this day for Santa Barbara, 7 of 18 from 3-point range. You had 17 points out of Adam Haney, and Mario Little was able to return in this one as well. And for Hawaii, they lose the turnover battle 13-12, and Santa Barbara has actually been a relatively decent over team thus far this season as well. Cincinnati, they're now 4 overs to 14 unders with what we saw on Saturday. Ryder is up to 4 overs to 12 unders. Fordham is 4 overs to 12 unders. Bryant and UT Arlington are as well, and UT Arlington just has not been great with regards to this offense, to say the least. And for UT Arlington, they got absolutely cooked on Saturday by Utah Valley. This was one of their few overs, 86-74 final in this one. As for Utah Valley, they got up 46-28 in the first half. UT Arlington was able to make it a little bit more respectable in the second half. As for UT Arlington, they go 6-20 from 3, and they've been your top 3-point shooting defense in all of college basketball. Line was right around about 11.5. So UT Arlington, close but no cigar in covering, but 15 turnovers for UT Arlington. They've been one of the worst teams in terms of taking care of the ball in all of college basketball, so that's been a big reason for the unders. And for this Bryant Bulldogs bunch, man, they just have not been able to get a lot of offense going in general. A lot of those teams out there in the America East, they just have not been able to give you a whole heck of a lot of offense in general. We'll see what they're going to be able to do on Monday, but that's going to be very fascinating to say the least. And then Michigan State, a team that we brushed up on a little bit earlier, 5 overs to 13 unders. And then Eastern Michigan, they've also been 5 overs to 13 unders. And keep in mind, they had Carlos Hart, who was a part of that gambling scandal on the team. Now, they were able to play an over without him, and they actually covered against Bowling Green. So first game without Mr. Hart, not too bad for Eastern Michigan. They fall to Bowling Green, 85-79 the final, as they win this game because they go 9 of 13 from 3-point range. Mayor Wool was able to go off for 25 points, 5 of 7 from 3-point range. And then for Eastern Michigan, they needed someone to step up in the absence of Hart. And Braylon Green, who I believe has been coming off the bench for the team, he's been averaging about 3 points per contest, inserted into the starting lineup. He was able to deliver for the team 22 big points. So yay, verily, for Eastern Michigan being able to get that cover. And if you're taking a look at the landscape of college basketball right now and what we're all seeing trend-wise, this is with like 1 or 2 results pending for Saturday. I do have to have this up by midnight Pacific, 3 o'clock a.m. Eastern, and we had games going on all day. But the over is now in the lead on unders. 1,543 overs, 1,530 unders. Right now, the underdogs are hitting at over 51%. 1,574 and 1,498 against the spread. And over the last 7 days, it's been Dogopalooza as the underdogs hitting at 55.8%, 174 and 138 against the spread, and the overs hitting at about 54.2%, 169 overs, 143 unders, and a few pushes along the way. So that's what we're seeing in college basketball right now, and that's what we're all getting trend-wise. Coming next, how about if we do chat with our good friend Nate Hornung, a.k.a. Shaggy. That's right here on Chris with myself, Shaggy Peterson, now a part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Inside Edge this college basketball season? Well, VSiN experts use CBB Analytics, the most comprehensive college basketball analytics platform in the world. See injury impact, on and off data, clutch time performance metrics, first versus second half splits, and so much more. Utilize the promo code of VSiN, that is VSIN, to get $30 off and find your betting edge over at cbbanalytics.com. That is cbbanalytics, all one word.com. For anyone that is new to VSiN, well, I wish you a friendly hello. This is an attention to anyone that is new to VSiN because you're able to get some free stuff with our daily newsletter. It's a great way to catch up on everything that's happening in the sports betting world. It's delivered straight to your inbox every single morning. VSiN's newsletter offers picks, data, strategies for the day's betting menu, and so much more. Sign up for free today over at VSiN.com/newsletter. That's VSIN.com/newsletter, and start receiving your free newsletter tomorrow morning. That is VSIN.com/newsletter. Stay ahead of the game and bet smarter with VSiN. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Seats with myself, Greg Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by this man as we've got Nate Hornung aboard. He does such great work over at Your Betting News. He is the handler of one Kobe Marcio, so he does a really good job of being able to keep him in line. He does a great job with the show Up Your Units, and he is a great man when it comes to looking at college basketball. He does some soccer, he does some football, you name it. He is going to be able to get you covered, and you're able to follow him on the old Twitter/X at Shaggy_bets. And Nate, it's always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you.
Hey, happy to be here, Greg. Thanks for having me on.
It's always great to be able to have you aboard, Nate. And Nate, we are now a few weeks into conference play, and just how have you taken a look at things thus far? Because it feels like these teams that we thought were so high and mighty coming into conference play, they've been knocked down a peg. Even a team like Arizona got pushed by Arizona State. Now, I've yet to see how they finish up against Central Florida. It was looking pretty solid for them prior to us coming onto this show. But that said, it does feel like there's been a lot of, shall we say, frustration, and there's been a lot of strife for these teams that we thought were just cruising along. They were covering all these spreads, but that seemed a little bit of a reversal since.
Oh, absolutely. It's time for these big dogs to come back down to earth. Conference play is here, and specifically looking at Arizona and the Big 12. I mean, the Big 12 is just a gauntlet. We saw that with Iowa State as well, suffering 2 losses this week at the hands of the Kansas Jayhawks and then on the road against Cincinnati. And even teams like Michigan, who we thought were head and shoulders above the rest, getting knocked down a peg, losing to Wisconsin at home, struggling to cover spreads recently. I don't think they've covered in at least 4 straight. It's interesting to see how these teams move, but that's just beauty of conference play. You know, anybody can beat anybody. It's anybody's games. And these teams bring a little bit, maybe extra effort trying to knock off the big dogs. Hey, we're not having a successful season, but we could beat the number 1 team in the country. So that's something to look forward to going forward.
Absolutely, and it is really interesting to just take a look at some of these results, take a look at some of these teams that are going up/down, and when you take a look at conference play, how much more of a premium do you put on some of these underdogs, and do you put on some of these home court environments? Because with Iowa State, they had to go into 2 hostile environments. That was really what doomed them. For Michigan, they've really been having some road struggles. I will say that loss against Wisconsin, that did come at home, but I do think that one of the most difficult things in all of sports is to win a true road game in college basketball, and I think we've been seeing a lot of that the last few weeks.
Oh, no doubt about it. I'm going to turn this conversation to my own Kansas Jayhawks that have gotten 2 huge wins at home this week, had a great comeback win against TCU at Allen Fieldhouse as well, proving that it's a very tough place to play, and not just there, anywhere in the country, it's tough to get a road win, as you can see with the Kansas Jayhawks, who have not won a Big 12 game on the road yet this year, losing to Central Florida on the road and to West Virginia. It just means more, when you get these schools, you get these rivalries forming, and going on the road into a hostile environment is very, very tough to go and get that win. So, I will definitely be targeting some short dogs, maybe even some longer dogs on the outright line as well, just because it's conference play. Anything can happen.
Absolutely. As Nate Hornung, you know him better as Shaggy Betts. He's joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops, and it's going to be really interesting to see what we get moving forward out of some of these home underdogs. And we do have a few on the card for Sunday, and we've got a few teams out there in the Midwest that I love, and we've got some tight lines in the American as well. And how do you take a look at a team like a UAB who's going to be finding themselves as 1.5 to 2.5 point favorites against Tulsa? Tulsa was another one of those teams that was really covering a lot of spreads to begin the season. I would say one of the better surprises in terms of mid-major basketball. They've been knocked down a peg, and for UAB, it's been a team that I think it's fair to say they've been all over the place. They lose a game at home to Alabama State to begin the season, but they've had some nice rebounds ever since then. How do you take a look at a game like this where you've got one team in UAB that does a great job treasuring the ball, but they look to pound the ball inside, and for Tulsa, they're one of the best three-point shooting teams in the country?
Oh, no doubt about it. And I mean, you said it. UAB is going to have to defend the perimeter, and we'll see if they'll be able to do that at home. And, specifically with the Blazers, that loss at the beginning of the season, obviously a big blemish on their record, but they've turned it around, crunched out 3 very tough wins in their last 4 games, 2 of them coming in overtime on the road. Actually, all 3 of their conference wins coming on the road, yet to win a conference game at home. So I would actually probably be willing to back the Blazers in this situation at home, a place you have not won a conference game yet, getting a Tulsa team coming into town that's, coming off a win over Charlotte, but then 2 losses to South Florida and North Texas before that. I think the Blazers might be able to catch the Golden Hurricanes slipping here a little bit. I'd be willing to back the Blazers at home in this one.
And I think that's really interesting to take a look at these games with tight lines and to take a look at the underdogs as well, because when I look at the types of underdogs I like, it's typically teams that play good defense and do a great job of rebounding. Meanwhile, the jump shooting teams are the ones that I'm a little bit more shy, say, nervous about backing.
Oh, no doubt about it. Looking at a team that doesn't play tomorrow, but the Louisville Cardinals are one of the most aggressive three-point shooting teams in the country. They might even lead the country in three-point rate, but you see their shooting percentage significantly drop off when they're not at their home gym, and that's something you definitely have to take into consideration when trying to back these teams on the road.
Absolutely. And how about you take a look at it conference by conference? Because I do think that there are a few conferences where you just don't have a lot of a home court advantage, like the Metro Atlantic, for example, where you just have to jump on the subway from time to time to be able to play a road game. That's one conference where I don't take into account home court advantage as much. Meanwhile, in the Big Ten, you want to talk about home and road splits. It feels like every one of those teams have some very demonstrative ones.
No doubt about it. And you should have a big difference when you're traveling 3 time zones from one coast to another just to play in these conference games, which we're seeing in the Big Ten. We're kind of seeing it in the Big 12 and then a couple of ACC teams as well out there in California, which that doesn't make sense. But these kids got to travel, and it takes a toll on the body, and that shows up on the court. Looking at these teams that go on these big road trips or maybe, don't have a solid break at home, they're on the road very, very frequently, I'd be looking to fade them in those situations or maybe even take the under in those games, expecting them to come out a little sluggish. Because let's be honest, travel affects everybody, not just the athletes. I feel a little sluggish after a plane ride across the country. So I can imagine on the court, it would affect them a little bit. I'll definitely be looking to fade those teams that have to travel more and more often.
Absolutely, as we do have our good friend Nate Hornung, better known as Shaggy Betts, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And a lot of times I like to be able to take a shot on some of these home underdogs. I don't think I'll be able to do it on this game on Sunday, though, as East Carolina has just been absolutely dreadful this year with their three-point shooting percentage on offense. On defense, it hasn't been too much better either. With Charlotte, they're a 1.5 to a 2.5 point favorite in that total of 143.5. How do you take a look at a situation like this? Because I think that Charlotte is one of those big elixirs to a lot of what we're talking about with regards to backing these underdogs, because Charlotte likes to slow things down. They've been a pretty solid team on the glass. Recognize that their three-point shooting defense leaves something to be desired, but against a team like East Carolina, that doesn't matter quite as much.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And I mean, East Carolina 0-4 already in the American, and I'm with you. I don't necessarily see them getting the win at home tomorrow. Charlotte has been a little up and down, but coming off the loss against Tulsa, having won 3 straight prior, it's probably a spot where I would expect the 49ers to bounce back a little bit and take down the Pirates here at home. Charlotte is a team, like you said, slows things down, which probably is going to benefit the Pirates because they certainly can't keep up with anybody on the offensive end. But ultimately, I would expect Charlotte to be able to pull off this road win.
And there's only one ranked team that's going to be in action on Sunday, and I just feel like they're a little bit undervalued in the national landscape. Now, I don't know if they're going to quite be able to cover this big of a number, but Houston is right now playing against Arizona State as a 16.5-point favorite, and that totals between 145.5 to 146.5. How do you take a look at both this game for Houston and just going forward with them? Because Houston just got a little bit, shall we say, undervalued after that loss that they took earlier during the season, but ever since then, they've been able to rebound, and as we know, out there in a brutal Big 12, a few losses are going to happen, and I still think that Houston is one of those teams that can certainly compete for a Final Four and a title.
Oh, absolutely. Houston is a very, very good basketball team. There's no doubt about it. Phenomenal defensively. They play their style of basketball. They're not afraid to slow things down. They understand that, hey, we might not need 65 points to win a basketball game. We're just going to make sure you guys score 55. And that's their kind of philosophy going forward. But, 16.5 points against an Arizona State team that's pretty feisty. Just went toe-to-toe with the Wildcats, obviously, on the road. Bit of a rivalry game. Maybe they're going to wake up a little extra for that one, but I expect this one to be a little slower. I'm really not liking anything on the current lines, but I would definitely lean with the Sun Devils being able to cover this 16.5, just thinking it's going to be a slow game with limited number of possessions. I would probably lean with the Sun Devils, backing them on that big number.
And would that maybe lean you a little bit more towards this 146 after the under? Because that's one thing that stands out to me. When you got a Houston game and that total is above 140, for me, it really takes a good offense to be able to get you over that total. And Arizona State has legitimately been able to score points away from home. But with this Houston team, I just don't know if you get enough opportunities for that over.
No, I don't think you're going to. Because, as we said, Houston, one of the slowest teams in the nation, they're not going to give you those extra possessions that Arizona State is going to need in order to cover the spread. Now, Arizona State, a team that likes to speed things up, top 80 in the nation. But again, Houston being at home, being as good and dominant as they are, Kingston Fleming's absolutely phenomenal at running that offense, keeping the tempo slow, making sure everybody's set up, making sure they take all the time they need to run their sets and get a good shot. I just don't see the Sun Devils getting enough possessions to force this total over. So yes, I would definitely like the under 146.5 in Arizona State and Houston.
Right there with you, as we do have our good friend Nate Hornung, better known as Shaky Bets, joining me right here on Coast to Coast Hoops. And just mentioned it, I do think that in the national landscape, as strange as it sounds, perhaps Houston is a little bit undervalued. And are there a few other teams that are standing out to you that maybe they're not getting the love that they deserve, and you're really just starting to like what they're putting out there on the floor?
I can't take my eyes off of UConn. And I know that's maybe a little chalky being the number 3 team in the country, but you can never count out Dan Hurley and those guys. And UConn has the benefit. Maybe they're not going to be as battle tested in the Big East as some of these other teams are playing in the Big 12 or playing in the Big 10. But I would expect UConn to just kind of run through the Big East and make their way to probably another 1 seed in the March Madness tournament. And of course, we've got to give our flowers to Nebraska, right? Yes. Number 8 in the country. Obviously, everybody's talking about them. A big win on the road against Northwestern. I kept waiting for this Nebraska team to fall. I thought it was going to happen on the road against Illinois after their 30-point victory over the Wisconsin Badgers. I thought it might happen against Michigan State because Tom Izzo and the Spartans are a very tough team, and Nebraska keeps pulling off wins. So I got to give my flowers to the boys up in Lincoln because they are playing phenomenal Nebraska ball recently. I don't see it stopping. I think they're a force to be reckoned with in the Big Ten. We'll see when they have to go to Ann Arbor in late January if they can compete with Michigan. Got to tip the cap to Nebraska so far this season.
Oh, absolutely. It has been a tremendous season for them, and with Nebraska, perhaps they'll finally, and I mean finally, get that first NCAA tournament win. It certainly does feel like this is the year for it. And Nate, we do have a small slate for Sunday, but I think it's a relatively solid one. Some American Conference games. We've got ourselves a Big Ten game or two with Penn State versus Maryland. Anything else that we haven't yet to talk about that's really standing out to you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, any college basketball is better than no college basketball in my eyes. We'll take whatever they give us on Sunday. One game I'm looking at actually in the Big Ten out in College Park is Penn State heading to Maryland to take on the Terrapins. And I'll be back in the under 148.5. You've got two 0-6 teams in Big Ten play. We're just going to fade both of them and take the under here. This tempo is going to be slow. The Terps, they take way too many threes. They don't make a top 70 in three-point rate, but they only shoot 31% from beyond the arc, bottom 25 in EFG percentage. And actually, the offense is technically worse at home. Now, the Nittany Lions, they don't get to the free throw line. They don't crash the offensive glass, but they stop their opponent from doing that. So I don't expect too many free throws in this game. I don't expect very many second chance points, and I expect a very slow-paced game, which leads me to believe this Penn State-Maryland game goes under. So under 148.5 in Penn State and Maryland.
And to your point about Penn State, a team that typically plays very fast under Mike Rhodes, they have really slowed down that tempo this year, but a man that is always at a nice steady tempo of being able to generate winners, that'd be you, Nate. You do such excellent work over at Your Betting News. You do a great job of keeping our good friend Kobe in line as well, so let the good people at home know it's all on tap for you and how people can follow along on social media and other platforms.
You can follow me on all socials at Shaggy_bets. You can find me and Colby yapping every single weekday at noon Eastern on the Betting News Twitch channel, and then you can find all of my scribbles at bettingnews.com. Any sports you guys need, I'm your guy. Thanks for having me on, Greg.
Always great to have Nate aboard every single time he joins me. Lends such great insights and did so once again today. So big thanks to Nate for joining me on Coast to Coast Hoops, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. And coming up next, it is that time of the podcast to give you picks and analysis of the game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots. And we're back here in lovely Las Vegas for Coast to Coast Hoops with myself, Greg Hoops Peterson, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Always great to be joined by Nate Hornung. He does such great work over at Your Betting News. You might know him better as Shaggy Bets. Every single time he joins me, he lends such great insights, and he did so once again today. So a big thanks to Nate for joining me in the last segment. Now it is that time of the podcast. I give you picks and analysis on every game on the betting board for this college basketball Sunday as we hit some bank shots.
Most financial establishments close at a certain time, but not here. It is time for a side and total on every game on today's betting board bank shots.
Do note that as per usual, any changes that are made to these plays will be listed up on my Twitter/X feed at GUNet_D1. We are going to be going in Las Vegas rotation order. This is pretty much time order aside from American versus Army. That's an extra game that is going to be at the bottom because that is a part of the extra games board. Past that, everything is time order, so let's get things started. 825, 826, Temple. We give our O to Lane Kiffin. Go Owls. They play us to Florida Atlantic. We give our O to Lane Kiffin. Go Owls. In the Battle of Owls, it is the Florida Atlantic Owls that do find themselves as a very slim favorite here of 1.5 to 2.5 points. Tonight's game, it is 151 to 151.5, and I said Florida Atlantic is a 3.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay this small number for Temple. Really good in terms of taking care of the ball. Top 25 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. They'll have the edge against Florida Atlantic there, but this is a Temple team that's just not great in terms of their defense. They are a team that ranks about 131st in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. They're not going to put you under any sort of duress whatsoever. They're outside the top 275 in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. Florida Atlantic, they're more around about 113th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. And for this Florida Atlantic team, they do a really good job in terms of not allowing second and third chances. In terms of defensive rebound percentage, Florida Atlantic is right now allowing teams only grab about 24.3% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound. That is a top 40 mark in all of college basketball. Now, Florida Atlantic has been a little bit suspect with their three-point shooting percentage defense, and you do have a Temple team that shoots well over 36% from three, but also for this Florida Atlantic team, they should be able to win the battle down low, and they themselves have been a top 75 team in terms of their two-point shooting percentage. Devin Vanterpool, along with Cannon Carlisle, have been able to combine for 31 points per contest, with Vanterpool shoots 45% from three. Now, with Carlisle, he can very much shoot you in or out of a game, sometimes turns the ball over a little bit too much, but that gets mitigated by the fact that Temple really doesn't generate any turnovers. Xavier Pendleton has been able to do a nice job, give you about 8.5 points per game, and then Devin Williams with his 3 blocks per contest, that is going to be massive. Now with Temple, you know that you're going to be able to get clean possessions for this team. They're only turning the ball over about 9 times per contest, and they shoot about 36.5% from three. Darian Bill for Tuff and Aiden Tobiasen combined for 31.5 points per contest. These guys have been rock solid. Not a single guy in the roster that gives you over 5 rebounds per game, though. Gavin Griffiths, about 12.5 points, 4.5 boards. He does give you about 2.5 blocks per contest, so that's been helpful. Temple has been a top 75 team in terms of block shot percentage, but this is a team that is very wobbly down low. They're outside the top 150 in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. It's a Temple team that's been pretty solid in terms of getting to the free throw line. They shoot 73% at the charity stripe, but they do allow themselves to be really hurt from 3-point range as well. They're line teams who shoot about 32.5% from the outside, and if you look at Temple in their home games specifically, that does go down to about 30.5%. You do have a Florian Lang team that's going to be looking to push Temple, and Temple is not. Temple is 311th of the country in terms of total possessions per game. Florian Atlantic is 96th. I do, though, think that Florian Atlantic is going to do a nice job attacking inside with them not being under duress, not having to worry about turnovers. I think they get good, clean possessions at a game that comes down to late game fouls, and I do think that in the end, Florian Atlantic has just enough on the inside to be able to pull it out. So I did set my total at a 151.5 here at the 151. I like the over, and I'm willing to lay up to 3 with Florian Atlantic. 827, 828 on the card. It is Penn State. They're going to be on the road against Maryland. Maryland is a 2.5 to a 1.5 point favorite total on this game. 148 to 148.5. Made Maryland the 3.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. Now for Penn State, this team has been able to do a great job in terms of winning the turnover battle, and they've really slowed themselves down from past seasons. With Penn State, they're right now 285th in the country in terms of total possessions per game, and Maryland has sped up much more than what you typically expect from a Buzz Williams team. They're 127th in terms of total possessions per game, but Maryland over their last 6 games playing at a rate of about 4 possessions per game slower, so they are beginning to taper off a little bit there. One thing that has just really killed this Maryland team has been opponents' 3-point shooting. They're 310th in the country with opponents shooting 36.3% from 3-point range. That actually goes up to right around about 36.7% in their home games, but also in their home games, Maryland has been a solid team in terms of generating turnovers. In terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, this Maryland team overall for the season checks in 138th, but if you look in their home games specifically, they do become a top 75 team with that regard. They generate a turnover on about 20% of their possessions, so I do think that that's going to be helping them out quite a bit. As a matter of fact, they actually ascend into the top 75 with that regard, and for Maryland, they are the better rebounding team with Solomon Washington, who was dealing with injury to begin the season. He was the main guy that came over from Texas A&M along with Buzz Williams. He, since coming off of injury, has been able to give this team that neighborhood about 9 points, 9 rebounds per contest, so he's been solid. Miles Rice has been a little bit of a disappointment, but Darius Adams, David Hewitt, the 2 Ds, they've been able to give you a combined about 26.5 points per contest, and Hewitt does shoot 38.5% from 3-point. Elijah Saunders has been able to shoot about 40% from 3-point range, and I do think that with this bunch, they are getting better and better as they are getting a little bit more acclimated with those guys that were missing due to injury coming back. And for Penn State, this has been a team that has been very good in terms of just making sure that they keep their possessions clean. Top 15 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, as you've got 2 guys that are freshmen in Malai Tunka along Caden Mingo combining for 25 points per contest. Tunka 10 points per contest, shoots 40% from 3. Mingo doesn't shoot it well from 3, but 4.5 assists, 2.5 steals per contest. It's a Penn State team that has been a top 100 team in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis, and they don't allow a lot of second and third chances in terms of opponents being able to grab offensive rebounds. They don't grab a lot of second and third chances themselves, though. For this Penn State team, in terms of opponents' rebound percentage, they're allowing teams to grab about 27.5% of their missed shots as an offensive rebound away from home, which isn't bad, but I do think that with this Penn State team just getting absolutely blasted down low, they're outside the top 3 in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. That allows the Maryland team has been a little bit suspect around the outside, but does have back Solomon Washington to be able to reign supreme, and this has been a Maryland team that has been very suspect with regards to their own 2-point shooting percentage. They're outside the top 250 in terms of their own 2-point shooting percentage of defense. On offense, they've been outside the top 3 with that regard, but this is a top 125 team in terms of their offensive rebound percentage. They are able to grab those second and third chances. Do think that you're going to have some turnovers in this game, but in the end, I do think that Solomon Washington really elevates this Maryland team and allows them to be able to get the job done. I'm going to be willing to lay up to 3 with Maryland, and did set a total of 147.5. I do think that the turnovers cost you an over, so in on the under, and I'm going to be willing to lay with there. Maryland, 829, 830 on the card. Oakland, they are going to be on the road against UW Green Bay, and Green Bay does find themselves as a home underdog of 4.5 points. 159.5 is the total. I'm in on the points with Green Bay. I did set this line at a 3.5. I don't want the money line here, but for Oakland, they're just too bad of a defense for me to be able to trust. Now, Oakland is a team that's going to give you a lot of second and third chances. 319th in the country in terms of defensive rebound percentage. UW Green Bay doesn't grab any offensive rebounds here. Outside the top 340 in terms terms of percentage of the missed shots that result in an offensive rebound, and Green Bay is not going to put you under duress. 362nd in the country in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. Oakland 313, so you're going to get good clean possessions on both sides. You've got a Green Bay team that's looking to slow it down and an Oakland team that's looking to bump up the tempo. Oakland is 60th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. Green Bay 342nd. I do think that you get an over, though. I did set my total at a 161.5, mainly because both of these teams are not doing a great job defensively, and it's a Green Bay team that does a nice job keeping things clean. Top 75 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. While on defense, they are currently 328th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Oakland is 325th, so comparably bad defenses there. And for Green Bay, you've got Marcus Hall on your side, who's been able to do a nice job headlining things with about 15 points per contest. Really the lone guy in the roster that gives you over 5 rebounds per game, 5.5 boards, shoots 38.5% from 3. And that's a Green Bay team that is shooting about 35.5% from the outside. That is a top 125 mark in all of college basketball. And in conference play, in their 8 Horizon League games, they shoot 40.6% from 3. And they've been an okay 3-point shooting defense here in conference play. Overall, they do allow opponents to shoot about 35% from 3. And they do get blasted down low. They're outside the top 290 in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. And though this is an Oakland team that shoots it relatively solidly from 3-point range, Brody Robinson has done a nice job headlining things as he's able to supply the team with 15 plus points. He's doling out over 5 assists per contest. Oakland is looking to pile drive the ball down low. Only about 32.8% of their field goal attempts come from 3-point range in a roadside shoot score venue. That is a bottom 50 percentage, so they are very much looking to get the ball inside. You got Isaac Garrett, who's been able to give you about 5 to 6 rebounds per game, along with Bori Navarula, 13.5 points, about 6 rebounds per game, and then Michael Hoagie, who was missing towards the beginning part of the season, has been rock solid with 13.5 points, 5.5 boards. And for Oakland, they overall shoot about 34% from 3-point range. They've been able to do a solid job in terms of being able to get the ball inside, being able to keep their possessions clean, execute on offense, and been an absolutely brutal defense. And if you do find yourself in a tight spot, both of these teams solid at the free throw line. Oakland, they shoot 75.9% at the free throw line. It's a Green Bay team that they're shooting more in that pocket, about 72.5% at the free throw line. In the end, I do think that Oakland gets the job done, but I think that UW Green Bay remains lively in a game that may not feature the most possessions, but they should feature clean possessions. I set my line at 3.5. We'll take 4+ here with Green Bay, and I like the over set my total at a 161.5, 831, 832 on the card. UW Milwaukee is going to be on the road against Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne is a favorite here of 3.5 to 4 points. So on this game, 147.5 to 148.5. Made my line 6.5. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. It's a Fort Wayne team that should be able to take advantage of Milwaukee being shorthanded in this game. Danilo Jovanovic, he's been really the top rebounder for UW Milwaukee, supplying the team with about 12 points, 6 rebounds per contest. He's been out the last 2 games for this team, and right now with him out of the fold, that means that you're going to have to rely upon Faison Fields and Aaron Franklin to really pick up the slack. Both of these guys do give you about 6 rebounds per contest, but neither are the scorer that Jovanovic is. He's been able to give you about 12.5 points per game and has actually shot 53% from 3, albeit on very, very low, shall we say, volume. But I mean, it's a UW Milwaukee team that, while they do a nice job keeping things clean, top 55 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis, the lifeblood for this team has been being able to give themselves second and third chances. They have been a top 75 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage, overall 132nd in the country in terms of rebound percentage. And this Purdue Fort Wayne team, their kryptonite is down low. They are 362nd in the country in terms of rebound percentage. Take out Jovanovic, and that means that Fort Wayne is going to be able to reign supreme with the fact that they always win the turnover battle. Fort Wayne, top 55 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, top 55 team in terms of generating turnovers on a per possession basis on defense. And you've got a pair of guys, Mikhail Stevenson, DeAndre 3000 Craig, that combine for about 29 points per contest. Right now with Craig, he shoots 38% from 3-point range. Corey Hednott, 20 points, 4 boards, 3 assists, 2 steals. He shoots about 35% from 3-point range. Not a single guy on the Fort Wayne roster that's able to give you more than 4.8 rebounds per game, but with its Fort Wayne team, they are going to be able to do a nice job, in my opinion, of finding good looks from 3 against a UW Milwaukee team that's just been absolutely ghastly in terms of being able to guard the 3-point line. For as good as this team is on the glass, they allow a lot of open looks from 3-point range. UW Milwaukee right now allows teams to shoot about 37.8% from 3-point range in a roadside church court venue that is outside the top 275 in all of college basketball. I do think that this bunch is going to be able to exploit that. I think that Purdue Fort Wayne does a nice job in terms of winning the turnover battle, and Purdue Fort Wayne, as much as they try to control the perimeter, this is also a top 75 team in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage. Neither of these teams necessarily looking to push tempo. Neither of these teams necessarily slow. For Milwaukee, they're about 182nd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. For Purdue Fort Wayne, they're checking in more around about 179th, but I think that you get efficient offense here. So my line at 6.5, I'm going to be willing to lay up to 6 with Fort Wayne, and I do like the over. So a total 152.5, 833, 834. It is Charlotte on the road against East Carolina. East Carolina home underdogs of 1.5 to 2 points, 1 143.5 is the total. I'm willing to lay it with Charlotte. I did set them as a 3-point favorite. It just comes down to the fact that East Carolina is an absolutely terrible 3-point shooting team out of 365 Division I teams. Right now, good already 362nd. They shoot 26.8% from three. A little bit better at home, but still below 30% from 3-point range at home. And this is a Charlotte team that has been very good on the inside. 66th in the country in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage. And it's an East Carolina team that, because they're so bad with their 3-point shooting, they do look to pile drive the ball down low. They have been a top 50 team in terms of percentage of their shots that come from inside the 3-point arc. East Carolina is also getting bludgeoned with regards to teams being able to launch from three against them. They allow teams to shoot 36.7% from 3-point range. That's outside the top 315 in all of college basketball. You got a Charlotte team that's very low and slow, bottom 40 team in terms of total possessions per game, so they're not looking to crank up the tempo. They're country average team in terms of taking care of the ball, but also for Charlotte, top 125 team in terms of offensive rebound percentage, which is big because East Carolina, they look to control the boards with Jordan Riley, give you 20 plus points, 6 plus rebounds per game. He's been a nice stat sheet stuffer for them, and then Giovanni Amaruju has been able to do a nice job as well, give you over 8 rebounds per game, but you've got Anton Boinke on the flip side for the Charlotte team, comes over from Providence, true 7-footer, 10.5 points, 8 boards, nearly 2 blocks per contest, shoots 38% from 3-point range. Charlotte all of a sudden is shooting 35% from 3-point range. Aiden Coyers has been able to shoot 43% from 3-point range. Major Freeman, he has been a major part of this team with about 7 points. He shoots 38.5% from the outside, pretty much other than Ben Bradford, who's been their top scorer. Ben Bradford, about 14.5 points per contest. Everyone shoots it relatively well from three. They're a country average team in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage. They're not going to completely wow you there. And this is a Charlotte team that their kryptonite is their 3-point shooting percentage defense. It's a Charlotte team that they're going to give you good looks from 3-point range. They are about 271st in the country in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage. Actually goes down to about 32.5% when they're away from home. But for East Carolina, you just don't have guys that are able to knock down those threes, as you've got someone in Tybo Bailey who's been able to shoot about 30% from three with 8 points per contest. And I mentioned Riley a little bit before. He's actually up to 22 points per contest, shoots 32% from three. He is the only other top 7 scorers, and their number 8 scorer, Vito Petrovic, he averages 3.5 points and has been missing for 6 games this season. That shoots above 29.7% from 3-point range. So just not great for this team, to say the least. East Carolina is also outside the top 290 in terms of ball security. They turn the ball over 13.5 times per contest. They're outside the top 3 in terms of their own 2-point shooting percentage. Without few possessions you're going to get in this game, I do think that Charlotte finds a way to get the job done in a lower scoring game. Semi-total at a 139. I like the under, and I'm willing to lay up to 2.5 here with Charlotte. 835, 836 on the card. It's Wichita State. They are going to be on the road against South Florida. South Florida is a favorite here of 7.5 points on this game, 156.5, and made a total of 155.5. I do like the under. You're going to have a massive tempo war here. Wichita State, they are 264th in the country in terms of total possessions per game. South Florida is numero dos, so something's got to give there. And for South Florida, they're giving up a lot of good looks from 3-point range. They allow teams to shoot 35.5% from three. Massive home and road split. They allow teams to shoot 28.8% from 3-point range against them at home. 39.6% in a road/neutral venue. I think that the home number goes up. I think that the road number goes down eventually. And for South Florida, overall, they're about 110th of the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, giving up 18.2 points fewer per 100 possessions when they are at home rather than away from home. Wichita State, 79th in terms of points allowed per possession, but with Wichita State, I think that they stay in this game because of how good they are on the glass. Overall, they're a top 30 team in terms of rebound percentage, number 2 in terms of offensive rebound percentage away from home. In a road/neutral court venue, Wichita State rebounds 38.9% of their misses as an offensive rebound, as you've got the Berg and Wilberg, who's been able to give you 8.5 points, 7.5 rebounds per game. Keenan Giles has been really good from the outside, shooting 42.5% from three, 17.5 points per contest. Kieran Boyd comes over from East Tennessee, 10.5 points, 6 boards. He shoots 36% from three. It's a Wichita State team that overall has been a top 85 team in terms of their 3-point shooting percentage. It is a South Florida team that very much looks to get it going from 3-point range as well. 45% of their field goal attempts come from 3-point range. At its 66th in terms of highest percentages in the country. And for Wichita State, 51st in the country in opponent's 3-point shooting percentage. Teams shoot less than 31% from the outside against them. Now you do have Isaiah Nelson, who's really good down low, 16 points, block and a half, steal and a half, 10 rebounds per game. And it's a South Florida team that's a top 75 unit in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. And they themselves are a top 150 team in terms of taking care of the ball. So that's a little bit of a forte of theirs. You've been able to have Joseph Pignon Pignon, Josh Omajafo both give you about 13.7 to 13.8 points per game, and Pignon shoots 38.5% from three. Adarel Naroa, hopefully I got that correct, shoots 35% from three as well with a little bit of injury, but when he's been out there, he's been relatively solid. But Damian Collins has been a little bit of a disappointment. It is a South Florida team that allows a lot of opportunities around the outside, and for South Florida, this is also a top 50 team with regards to offensive rebound percentage, but I don't think that they get those second and third chances against a Wichita State team that's so good on the glass, and I think Wichita State remains lively in this game. I did set my line at a 1.5 in a tight spot. It's a South Florida team that actually leads the country in free throw attempts per game. That shoots about 73.5% of the free throw line. Top 125 team there, so not great, not terrible. I do think that South Florida in the end finds a way to be able to pull it out on their home floor, but I think it's a tight one. Won't take the points with Wichita State, and at a 156 plus in on the under, 837, 838 on the card. Tulsa, they're on the road against UAB. UAB, a very slim favorite here of 1.5 to 2.5 points. It's on this game, 158.5 to 159.5. So my total 159.5. So 159 or less. I do like the over. You had a Tulsa team that, while the offense is a main attraction, top 40 team in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, not terrible with regards to their defense. Now, I'm not going to call it an amazing defense by any stretch of the imagination, but you look at these guys in a roadside church score venue, they are a top 80 team in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. As a matter of fact, a top 70 team. Meanwhile, for UAB, 73rd in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, and UAB is awful with their three-point shooting. This UAB team right now from three-point range is shooting about 29% from three. That ascends to 31% at home, but UAB is also a top 20 team in terms of percentage of their shots that come from inside the arc, and they're a top 10 team in terms of fewest turnovers on a per possession basis. Conversely, Tulsa's an amazing three-point shooting team. They shoot 40.9% from three-point range. That is number 2 in all of college basketball, and this has also been a Tulsa team that has been pretty solid in terms of not allowing second and third chances. In terms of defensive rebound percentage in a roadside church score venue, right now this team is ranking in the top 55 with that regard, as the ancillary guys like an Ian Schmeichel has been able to give you about 4.5 rebounds per game. They're not really giving you flashy numbers, but you're able to get like 4.1, 4.2 rebounds per game out of Tyler Barron. He's been able to do a nice job for this team. You're getting about 4 boards out of Vermont Dean, and then the main scorers have been great. Miles Barnes-Sibyl, he comes over from St. Thomas, 13.5 points per contest. He shoots 42% from three. Tylen Riley shoots 44% from three, 14.5 points per game. And if you find yourself in a pressure spot, Tulsa, 6th in the country, shooting 78.8% at the free throw line, and David Green was cold from three-point range to begin the season. He's back up to 37%. He's been able to give the team 16 points per contest, but for UAB, the way that they're able to just treasure the ball and the way that they're able to do such a nice job inside, as it's a UAB team that's currently a top 40 team in terms of their own rebound percentage, you've been able to have these guys just do such a nice job in tandem, as right now you've got Evan Chapman give you 8.5 points, 8.5 rebounds per game. Daniel Rivera, Kyron Lindsay combined for 13.9 rebounds and 23 points per contest. I think that they're going to do a great job there. They're starting to get a little bit of three-point shooting out of Salim London, who's only giving you about 5 points per contest, but shoots 39% from three, part-time starter, and then Chance Wessery. While he doesn't give you any three-point shooting, good versatility, 15 points, 4.5 assists, 4 boards per contest, and in a pressure spot, UAB, they shoot about 71% the free throw line, just a hair below country average, but this is a team that sort of knows what they are. They're going to be able to possess the ball relatively well. They don't allow amazing looks from three-point range. I'm not going to call them the most amazing three-point shooting defense, but at the same time, they've been able to do a relatively solid job in terms of holding up there. This is a UAB team that right now allows teams to shoot in that neighborhood about 33% from three-point range, slightly above country average. It's a Tulsa team that they have been really with their kryptonite, allowing teams to shoot it well from three-point range. So I do think that that is going to help out a little bit in this ordeal. I did set my line here at a 1.5, so at a 2+, I'm willing to take the points with Tulsa, and I did set a total of a 159. I think that you're close enough for late game fouling, and I have a Tulsa team that's relatively mid-tempo, 213th in terms of total possessions per game. UAB, quite fast, 44th in the country. I do like a 159 or less to the over, and 2+ here with Tulsa. 839, 840 on the card. It's Tulane. They're going to be playing us in North Texas, and North Texas, a very slim underdog here. You're going to be laying 1.5 with Tulane. 133.5 is the total. Set a total of 132. I'm in on the under. You've got a North Texas team that has scored 65 points or fewer in every one of their games in a roadside score venue. They're outside the top 310 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis away from home. This has also been a North Texas team that has been very supreme with their defense when they're away from home, and they don't allow good looks from three-point range. North Texas overall 15th in the country in terms of opponents' three-point shooting percentage. They allow opponents to shoot less than 30% from three, both at home and away from home. And for North Texas, they are overall 42nd in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. If you look at them in a road or neutral court venue, that ascends into the top 18. Meanwhile, this is a Tulane team that they're not going to grab any sort of second and third chances. Outside the top 340 in terms of offensive rebound percentage, they're about 177th in the country in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis, but they are going to have the top scorer in this game. That'll be Rome Brumbaugh, who's been doing a nice job in the backcourt with about 18.5 points, 4.5 boards, 3.5 assists. From three-point range, he's launching it at 38.5%. from distance for a Tulane team that surprisingly is only shooting 32% from three. For a team that really doesn't hit the boards whatsoever, that's been rather unacceptable. I do think it's going to ascend as the season goes along, as they're shooting 27.8% from three at home compared to 39% away from home. That should iron out a little bit. Asher Woods, he's only been able to shoot about 27.5% from three. He and Curtis Williams between 12.8 and 13 points per contest. You've had Scotty Middleton be a little bit inconsistent as well. The one thing that this Tulane team has been able to do a relatively solid job of is getting to the free throw line. They're a top 75 team in terms of free throw attempts on a per possession basis. They do shoot 76.5% at the free throw line, and on the North Texas side of things, the offense just really fell down the tube when they lost Will McClendon, the transfer that came over from UCLA along San Jose State. And this is a bunch that does a pretty solid job in terms of being able to D up, but they will put you on the free throw line. They're outside the top 320 in terms of free throw attempts allowed on a per possession basis, and it is a North Texas team that they're outside the top 275 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis on offense, a top 15 team in terms of generating turnovers on a per possession basis on defense. So I think that there's going to be a lot of sloppiness there. North Texas, their main kryptonite is allowing offensive rebounds, and well, this is not a team that is going to, in Tulane, grab a lot of those offensive rebounds. You've got Jashawn Stevenson, 16.5 points. He shoots only about 32% from three, but he's one of the few guys on the roster right now that's shooting above 30% from three-point range. As a matter of fact, he's the only out of their top 7 healthy scorers that shoots above 30% from three-point range, but you do have someone like Josiah Shackelford, 6.5 points per contest. Dylan Arnett has been the main presence down low, a little bit over a steal and a block, 8 points, 6 rebounds per game. Do you think that you get a tight spot? I do think that in the end, Tulane's ability to be able to knock down free throws and North Texas not being able to get any offense whatsoever going away from home does reign supreme. I set Tulane as a 2-point favorite. I'm willing to lay the 1.5 with them, and on the other side, I total out at 132, 841, 842. It's Arizona State on the road against Houston. Houston is a 16 to a 16.5 point favorite. 145.5 to 146.5 is a total. Made a total of 135.5. I'm in on the under. Now, you do have an Arizona State team that has been shockingly good with their offense away from home. If you look at Arizona State overall for the season, they do clock in terms of points scored on a per possession basis right around about 119th. That actually improves to 33rd away from home. They shoot 27.7% from three-point range at home, 38.8% away from home. I think that this starts to iron out a little bit. You've got a Houston team that's once again playing slow and controlled outside the top 315 in terms of total possessions per game, número dos, in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Matter of fact, for Houston, they lost 77.5 points per every 100 possessions in their home games. You've got Emmanuel Sharp along Kingston Flemings, who've been able to combine for about 31.5 points per contest. They both shoot identical 38.5% percentages from three-point range, and Chris Sedek should be able to control things down low. 9 points, 7.5 rebounds per game. Now, with Samba Diop on the flip side for Arizona State, he's been able to give the team about 5 rebounds, block and a half per contest, so he's been able to do a nice job coming up big for this team, and additionally, you've been able to get good production out of Mo Odom, one of the more underrated guards in all of college basketball, 17 points, 6.5 assists. He shoots about 35% from three-point range. Again, I think that those three-point shooting percentages are going to be ironing out a little bit, and for this Arizona State team, they are outside the top 175 in terms of rebound percentage. They do leave themselves very vulnerable on the defensive side of things as well. Arizona State does allow a lot of good looks from three-point range, as right now teams are shooting from three-point range right around 34.7% from three against them. That goes to 38.5% in a roadside Schutz-Core venue, and this just has not been a very good defensive team in general in terms of points allowed on a per possession basis. Arizona State is 218th, and Arizona State is looking to play fast. I wouldn't necessarily call it warp speed fast. They are currently checking in terms of total possessions per game about 59th in the country. I do think that Houston, their slow and controlled style, the way that they're going to be able to dominate the boards, and Milo Suzan has not even really gotten going for this Houston team. He's been shooting less than 30% from three. I think that there's some positivity there. I think that Houston's defense reigns supreme, and I do think that Arizona State sees some regression with those offensive numbers away from home. So set my line more at a 19.5. I'm going to be willing to lay the number. Made my total 135.5, so I'm also in on the under. 843, 844 on the card. UTSA, meet me for the Roadrunners. They're on the road against Memphis. Memphis is a 21 to a 21.5 point favorite. 143.5 is the total. I said Memphis as a 24.5 point favorite. I'm going to be willing to lay it now. It has not been a great year for this Memphis team on offense. Memphis, under Penny Hardaway, they've always just had a little bit of a tough time in terms of turnovers, in terms of the turnovers forced on a per-possession basis. They've actually done a solid job defensively. They're a top 60 team with this regard. In their home games, they're still top 75. It does take a little bit of a drop-off, but this team has always just had a tough time in terms of being able to generate good, clean offense. Right now, Doug McDaniel, he's pretty much the lone double-figure scorer on the team with about 15 points. Does give you about 5 assists per game, but he's needed a little little bit of help, as right now for this Memphis team, in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis, they do check in outside the top 225, but that said, they've been dealing with a lot of injuries. Hassan Abdul-Hakim deal with an injury throughout much of the season, has been relatively rough for this team. Now they're getting him back, and he's been able to give you about 7 to 8 points per contest. You just need Aaron Bradshaw to be better in general. Aaron Bradshaw has been one of the biggest flops right now in college basketball over the last few seasons. He's only been able to get the team about 4 boards per contest, but this entire UTSA team, man, it just has not been great for them, as right now they are outside the top 3 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis. Not necessarily the world's worst team in terms of their 3-point shooting percentage defense, but right now you've only got one guy in Jameer Simpson that's able to give you double figures, and this is a UTSA team that always pride themselves in terms of generating turnovers. That's really the Austin Klein system going all the way back to when he was over at Nichols. This team has fallen outside the top 250 in terms of turnovers forced on a per possession basis. They're currently outside the top 320 in terms of their 2-point shooting percentage, 3-point shooting percentage, and free throw shooting percentage. With Austin Nunez, he's been able to give you about 10 points per contest to be able to help out the team, but other than Jameer Simpson, nobody else on the roster shoots about 31.6% from 3-point range. Been able to get a little bit of rebounding out of this team, as right now you've got about 6 boards per contest out of Caden Rayfield, about 7.5 points, 6.5 rebounds per game. Babacar Njai has been able to give you about 5.5 rebounds per game, and with Memphis finally starting to get healthy, and this UTSA team not getting anything going with regards to their offense, this being a defense that has really taken some strides back in terms of defensive rebound percentage outside the top 3. I do think that Memphis could be able to dominate this game, one where you should be able to get quite a few possessions. Memphis 83rd in the country in terms of total possessions per game. UTSA, they're a relatively fast team at about 117, so I do think that you get just enough possessions for the over. I set my total at a 146.5. So right now seeing 143.5, 144.5 like the over. And with Memphis, I know that's a big number. I know that Memphis has been bad. I'm willing to lay the number. This is the last game on the normal Las Vegas betting board before we hit our lone extra game, 845, 846. Washington State, they are on the road against San Francisco, and the Dons are a 5.5 to a 6-point favorite. 143.5 to 144.5 is the total. I did set mine at a 8. I'm going to be willing to lay it with San Francisco with this Dons bunch. It certainly has been one that has been not able to generate a lot of turnovers. They don't put you under duress, which that should help out Washington State, who's been outside the top 250 in terms of turnovers on a per possession basis. But for San Francisco, they've dealt with quite a few injuries. Now they're getting their guys back. I know that Ryan Beasley and David Fuchs have both missed 2+ games apiece. Mookie Cook is a guy that has been out really since the turn of the new year, so I had to rule him out in this game. But even with Cook out, you should have Fuchs back, who's been able to give you about 12.7 rebounds per game. It is a Washington State team that, to their credit, they're top 10 team in terms of defensive rebound percentage. San Francisco matches that, though. They're 39th in terms of defensive rebound percentage, so neither team is really going to be getting a lot of second and third chances, and it's a Washington State team that I don't think is going to be able to find good looks from 3-point range. Right now, for San Francisco, they're allowing teams to shoot less than 31% from 3-point range. They've been a top 75 team in all of college basketball in that regard, and with Washington State, this team has been just really not able to do a great job defensively, as they're 275th in terms of opponents' 3-point shooting percentage, and that's big because San Francisco, they take 47% of their field goal attempts from 3. Ryan Beasley being really the main guy in terms of launching from 3. He's only been able to shoot 31% from 3, but Tyrone Riley shoots 45% from 3 with about 12.5 points per contest. San Francisco shoots a hair above 35.5% from 3-point range at home. They're a country average team with regards to their own 2-point shooting percentage on offense, but they're a top 75 team in terms of opponents' 2-point shooting percentage, and for Washington State, things have really been centered around ace glass in terms of their offense. Break glass in case of emergency for him, give you about 16 points per contest, and then you have a quartet of guys in Andy Okafor, Emil Yahoo, along with Richard Varvers and Thomas Thredson. That all give you 9.4 to 9.9 points per contest. Jerome Morton, who comes over from Morehead State, he's been able to give you about 3 assists, 7.5 points per game, but it's a unit in Washington State that just has not been able to do the world's greatest job in terms of executing on offense. They're outside the top 125 in terms of points scored on a per possession basis, even though they don't allow opponents to be able to grab second and third chances. They themselves don't really excel on the offensive glass as well. With the San Francisco team, they do really like to be able to play relatively low and slow in terms of total possessions per game. Right now, they check in at about 273rd, and this is a Washington State team that they play at a relatively moderate tempo, about 222nd. I just don't think that you're going to get a lot of second and third chances in this game, with Washington State being as sloppy as they are with the ball. They're turning the ball over 12.5 times per contest. I think that costs you the over. I do think that San Francisco going to be able to do a solid job inside, so I did set my line at 8. I'm going to be willing to lay with San Francisco, and like the under, set my total 142, and now we had our lone extra game.
The normal betting board picks are complete, but there are some extra games today, so we go into the the bonus.
306-617, 306-618. You've got American on the road against Army. Army is a 5.5 point home underdog. 145.5 is the total. I set this line at a 6.5. I'm going to be 108. You've got an American team that overall for the season in terms of total possessions per game is 279th. They had like a 5 or 6 game stretch to begin the season where they were playing super fast. If you take those out of the fold, they're back outside the top 300, and you've got an Army team that's been a little bit more mid-tempo this year. In terms of total possessions per game, this Army team is right now checking in about 166th, but I just don't think that this Army team is really going to be able to do a great job in terms of penetrating an American defense that has been good at generating turnovers. American, top 75 unit in terms of turnovers force on a per possession basis, and the name of the game for this Army team is being able to pop it from 3. They shoot over 52% of their overall field goal attempts from 3. That's a top 5 mark in all of college basketball, but when this team is at home, they shoot about 35.5% from 3, 31.4% in a road/neutral venue, but I do think that American is going to do a nice job in terms of generating turnovers. Other than Ryan Curry, you just don't have a lot of reliability for this Army team, as he's been able to, Mr. Curry, give you about 4.5 boards, 5 assists. He throws in there 14 plus points per contest, and additionally, you've been able to Jackson Furman give you 11.5 points per game. Both of these guys, in Furman and Curry, do shoot over 38% for 3. Jacksonville shoots 39% for 3. He's up to 11 points per contest, but with this American team, I do think that they're going to be able to do a relatively solid job of being able to guard things from the outside. Right now, for this American team, they allow teams to shoot about 35% from 3-point. They've been about 247th in all of college basketball. It's an Army team that can be very much had on the inside, as right now you really only have one guy on the roster who's been able to give you over 5 rebounds per game, Tate Lazowski, who's up to about 5 points, 5.7 rebounds per game. And it's an American team that has, in my opinion, 2 guys that are really able to do a nice job in terms of just being able to flow the offense, and then everyone else around them are guys that really like to pop it from 3-point range. Maiden Collins along Greg Jones, they combine for 25 points per game. Neither of these guys shoots above 26% from 3, but they are able to generate about 2.8 steals per contest. And then the ancillary guys like a Wyatt Nadesis, who's giving you about 9.5 points per game. He shoots 44% from 3. Jeff Spruce shoots 37% from 3, 8.5 points per contest. Matt Mayock, he stands right around about 6'7". He's able to shoot in the mid-30s from 3, 8 points, 4 boards. So these guys really do a good job of being able to just feast off of one another, being able to play in tandem. And with this American team, outside the top 275 in terms of generating second and third chances, in terms of offensive rebound percentage, not too bad in terms of denying those second and third chances. And for this American team, they've been a top 150 team with regards to their 2-point shooting percentage. It is an Army team that leaves something to be desired with that low post defense. They're outside the top 275 in terms of opponent's 2-point shooting percentage, and I think that wins out for American in a game that I think is going to be lower tempo. I set my line at 6.5, 1 to lay up to 6 with American, and in my total a 140.5, so I'm also in on the under, and that'll wrap things up for the Sunday edition of Coast to Coast Deep, now part of the VSiN Family Podcast. Big thanks to Nate Hornung, better known as Shaggy Betts, for joining me in the last segment. If you do like hearing from the Sign Podcast, Coast to Coast Deep, you're able to subscribe wherever your podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Spotify, Stitcher, and TuneIn. If you have a question, comment, segment idea, what have you for this podcast, you have one of 2 ways we offer those in. First one is my Twitter/X timeline at gunit_81. Keep in mind, letters the name does not matter, so per usual, please do send these into the timeline. And the other way is find an Apple Podcast review. If you rate this podcast 5 stars, it's very much appreciated. From there, you're able to fire in whatever you'd like to hear on this podcast via that 5-star review, and I'm coming at you guys every single day on this podcast with picks and analysis on every game, every day, so I'll be back with you once again tomorrow. Thank you so much.